and welcome to Liquid Lunch. This is a kind of a special edition of Liquid Lunch because we're doing it a little bit earlier in the day because we've got Christopher Canniff joining us, who came in all the way from Windsor. And Chris, great to have you here on the show.
Yeah, thank you. Great to be here.
And this is actually the first interview that I've done here in this new set in our new studio.
Oh, okay,
so,
great. Yes.
So it's a different experience for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you came all the way from Windsor today to talk about the book that you wrote called
Poor Man's Galapagos. Yes.
Poor Man's Galapagos.
Yes,
and that's kind
right.
of interesting because I had one of my co-hosts just came back from the Galapagos.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And this is a novel, though, right?
Yes, it is. It's a fictional novel, so it's literary fiction. And I'll tell a little bit about the novel as well as we go through.
Do you want to start off with a little bit of our reading, just to give people
Sure.
a flavor of it, and then I'm sure that will give us lots to talk about.
Okay.
This is based on you were living down in Ecuador.
Yes, I was living there for 1 year,
Yeah.
and I was on a program with World Teach, which is based out of the Harvard Institute for International Development. So it was started by a number of Harvard students a number of years ago. So they have a program in Ecuador, and they have Costa Rica as well as other countries. So, yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yes. So I'll start by explaining the title a little bit. I'll just do a quick reading that explains the title a bit. Isla de la Plata, or the Isle of Silver, more aptly designated La Isla de Mil Sombras de los Azules, or the Island of 1,000 Shades of Blue, was instead named for the precious metal found by Spanish soldiers shining from native necks and beneath inherited earth. The Spanish conquistadors battled the islanders, their firearms pitted against spears. Conquistadores, conquerors. They brought no women with them. In North America, those from the European continent who had brought their women were known as settlers. The Isle of Silver and the Poor Man's Galapagos, notions embedded in history and geography. The former from its prior abundance of a precious metal, the latter from its close proximity to the mainland in comparison with the Galapagos Islands. Isla de la Plata is 30 miles from the coast, and Galapagos Islands 600. Charles Darwin's flawed theory evolved from the more isolated environment of the Galapagos, with its blue-footed boobies perched above sun-heated rocks, sea lions barking their husky songs on huge expanses of beach beside giant tortoises dragging their weight through the sand, marine iguanas diving to clear blue depths in search of aquatic plant life, and 100 different species of finches. Only some of this splendor, a few varieties of finches, blue-footed boobies, some sea lions, but none of the famed giant tortoises has been bestowed upon the few visitors to Isla de la Plata, mostly Ecuadorians, who lack the money to travel more than 30 miles from the coast. So I'll just go back to the beginning and explain a little bit about what's happening at the beginning of the novel. So it's in the beginning scene, there's a Molotov cocktail that he is supposed to throw in a protest against the government. But he can't do that. So that's where we're at in the beginning chapter.
That's what happened to me once.
Yes. Oh, really?
No.
No, okay. So there's a couple of different conflicts at the beginning of the novel. So one of them is there are accusations against his father for embezzling government funds. His father is a renowned travel writer from Britain. And there's also a conscription. So he's been conscripted into the Ecuadorian-Peruvian border war, which is over oil and uranium, and there's also gold resources there. And at the same time, there's these government protests. So these things are all happening at once in Thomas's life. So I'll start where Thomas is walking beside his father along the beach, and they're discussing these things. Thomas walked beside his father along a wide expanse of barren beach. Montgomery's eyes shone a rich azure, a color mimicking the sea around him, as though the hue, continuously absorbed over decades of peering into the water's depths, now emanated from his gaze. Montgomery was still active after 70 years of life, manual labor seeming more a requirement of good health than a burden. The strength of his sun-baked limbs fought his hunched stature with every step. He was still slender, his physical appearance the same as that of the island's farm workers, and Thomas never remembered him otherwise. But Montgomery was a traveler, a writer, an occasional farmer, with protruding ears trapped between the large, turned-up collar of his gray shirt and the wide brim of his sun-bleached Panama hat. His worn sandals revealed crooked toes at the end of long, leathery feet. Minuscule sand crabs scattered away as they walked, burrowing back to the safety of waterlogged homes. "The newspaper accusations, they're chisme," Thomas said, "worthless gossip." "I'm glad someone thinks so," Montgomery replied, smiling. "But really, they're more important than you know." He spoke in English in a faded British accent, which Thomas had been told also permeated his own speech. Thomas tried to comprehend the meaning of his father's words as he looked out over the nearby fields, illuminated by the morning sun, fields that had occupied Montgomery's time between travel writing assignments over the last 50 years. "You remember," Montgomery continued, "we once worked those fields out there together until we were forced to stop. We collected bananas and plantains along with my greatest friend Eduardo Delgado, removing them from palm trees using blades tied to poles made of caña sugarcane shoots." "I remember the heavy poles," Thomas replied, "and how heavy were the straw baskets to collect red coffee berries and yucca." Thomas also remembered that Human Rights Watch had launched a campaign against the practice of employing youth for the harvest, and Montgomery had been forced to send the children home, Thomas included, but they never talked about that. Looking around, Thomas saw the same type of heavy caña poles, split down the center, had been tied loosely together to form walls and then placed between straw roofs and sand floors to produce the few distant residences within view. Both the building materials and the land beneath them were free of cost. "You know, Thomas, this section of land from the cliff down to the area of the Chinchilla Lagoon has been for sale for many years. It was the only land the government ever tried to sell on this island and the most pristine plot of land here." "I know, you told me before, but you said this chisme is important for what?" "Well, what you don't know is who bought the land." Perhaps Thomas's father had acquired the funds to purchase the land. Maybe he was not as trustworthy as he would have his son and others believe. Conceivably, the allegations could be true. "Not you?" Thomas asked. Montgomery grinned. "No, not me. This land you and I once worked together is now desolate and unfarmable. The Alboradas built here a few years ago by that international organization. They never worked. Instead of collecting rainwater runoff for the crops, they backflooded, so all they collect now is seawater. And now this land is all Eduardo's, ready for the hotel he's always wanted to build on it." Eduardo Delgado, Montgomery's friend of 50 years, had political aspirations beyond his current position as the island's mayor. And perhaps also a part of Eduardo's plans were this proposed hotel and this newly acquired land with its ancient and new alboradas, artificial U-shaped embankments capturing rainfall runoff to transform normally arid landscapes into tropical sanctuaries suitable for a wide variety of crops. Thomas had studied them for years by collecting soil samples and perusing aerial photographs. They continued walking in silence, feet dragging through the sand. The last of the black smoke from protest fires was still visible on the horizon, most of the fires extinguished immediately following the morning announcement that the seat of interim presidency was occupied, the former president having fled the country with several of his cabinet ministers. "I'm leaving soon," Montgomery said, the light of the sun displaying etchings of age on the corners of his face. "I'll be going to Quito." Now that his father had declared his decision to retire, Thomas never expected they would be apart again. A lifetime of separation was finally over, and their relationship was supposed to begin anew. He had overheard Montgomery telling Veronica that he would help look after Thomas now. "Thomas is 18, Veronica had replied. "He can take care for himself." Her words were spoken mockingly in observance of the fact that everyone, except Montgomery, realized that this resolution had come too late. So I'll stop there for the beginning.
Wow. Well, you're painting a real picture for us there.
Oh, right.
It sounds like I want to be there on that island and
Okay. Great.
Involved in that project somehow.
Yes.
But I'm just curious, when is that? It's a novel, so when is it set?
It's set a little bit before the time that I was there. I was there back in 1998, so it's set a little bit before that because of the way the timelines. Yes, kind of mid-90s.
So I guess it reflects the political situation in Ecuador at the time.
Right, and this Ecuadorian-Peruvian border war actually finished in '98 when I was there. So that was when the treaty was signed that declared armistice, that they were at peace. So
we don't even hear about these things.
Right, yes. And I wouldn't have either if I hadn't been living there. So
Living there, yeah.
yes.
So I'm just, now this is your, second novel?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And and I know that your background is you're a nuclear engineer.
Yes.
And so it's interesting that besides that you would be inspired to actually write novels.
Yes.
I'm just curious, where does that?
Yes. Well, I think that that's just a creative desire of mine that I've always been interested in reading, and I actually, when I went down to Ecuador, I started to read all these novels, and that's when I really started to write, was when I was reading constantly, and I never intended to write when I was down there. I intended just to read, having the time to do that, and so that was a kind of a natural evolution out of my reading, was jotting notes as thinking about what I was reading and becoming interested in these books. So
I think that's really good practice for writing too, is reading.
Yeah.
Reading great works of literature actually helps you become a better writer.
Right.
What were you reading? Just curious.
I was looking at sort of all the classics of world literature, so I wasn't reading anything modern. I was reading all of the classics. I was reading a lot of Borges, like Jorge Luis Borges is an Argentinian writer. I was reading like Fernando Pessoa. He's like the Portuguese poet that he wrote a book that was about a clerk. It was sort of a like the life of a clerk, but he had a very interesting imagination, so that kind of factored into his novel. I was reading things like philosophers, some of the great philosophers like Socrates and Plato, and all about their lives and about their writings as well. And then a lot of like Madox Ford, like The Good Soldier, and I was reading a lot of Hemingway and things like that. So just kind of a wide variety, and I tried to select from different countries of the world as well to get sort of a feel for different types of literature. So, and a lot of Russian writers as well, like Dostoevsky. I was reading heavily as well.
Yeah, Dostoevsky.
Yes.
Seems to be a pretty standard.
Yes. Yeah, but I had never read any of his stuff, so it was interesting. Yes. Yeah.
It's really funny.
Yes.
So now the first novel that you wrote, if you can talk about that
Sure.
briefly, because often the first novel is it's a lifetime of inspiration. Pushes out that first novel.
Sure.
What's that one about? We got a picture of it, I think. I don't know if we can show it, but this is the first one. What's this one about?
That one is a psychological novel. It's set in both Toronto and Ecuador, so it does go into Ecuador. So his father dies in Ecuador, that he didn't know his father at all, so he goes down to basically look after his effects, and while he's down there he is discovering more and more about his father's life that he didn't know.
It sounds kind of similar in a sense. There's the father relationship,
right,
and there's the Ecuador setting.
Yeah, because myself, I understand the importance of like the father-son relationship, and that's why I think that factors into my writing quite a bit as well. Yeah.
And now, when you were down in Ecuador, were you tempted to stay there?
I was going to stay there maybe an extra year, is what I was looking at doing. But beyond that, I didn't have any plans to stay there. But so yeah.
What about the tropical lifestyle versus the 6 months of winter lifestyle?
Right. That was that was interesting because they had 2 seasons, wet and dry. So during the wet season there would be torrential rain for 20 minutes, and then it would shut off like a tap. And
that's the wet season?
Yes. Yeah. And then during the dry season, just a lot of dust and things like that. So it was a lot of very, very different climate. And being in the rainforest, it rained every day. So We went into the rainforest as
You
well.
were tempted to abandon the Canadian lifestyle?
No, I know a lot of Peace Corps volunteers that were down there at the time that their term was 2 years, so they extended for another 2 years and another 2, so they... Yeah, so there were people down there that were doing that, but yeah.
Because I hear that, actually, I've heard about quite a few people that have either gone to live, like here, Ecuador is a good place to go now. You know, if you want to like take that tropical lifestyle or
Right.
make a change from the Canadian scene. But Ecuador is a good place to be.
Yeah, not a lot of tourists there, and there's also you know, the cost factor, so you can buy a home for around $1,000, which is very cheap.
$1,000?
Yeah, for a nice home.
Really?
So, yes. So, and you can actually, when I was there, you could stay in the capital city, you know, a nice bed and breakfast for $1 a night. So that was the kind of cost that you would incur living down there. So.
And yet I have had some people that went there and then they came back. For whatever reason, I don't know what it was. What are the people like down there?
Very friendly, very nice people, and I made a lot of very good friends down there. So a lot of them I still keep in touch with as well, and so yeah, very good friendships, and they taught me the language as well, which is like this group of friends that I had down there were actually used to Peace Corps volunteers. So when I came in, they were used to teaching people Spanish that spoke English, right? So that was interesting, and it helped me learn the language very quickly as well. So
yeah, sounds really nice.
Yes, yeah, it was very, very nice. Yeah.
Now, so how long has this book been complete and released? I take it it's out and available.
Yes, so it was launched November 21st in Toronto and November 18th in Cobourg. So it was out, I believe, in beginning of November. So. That was when it was available for people to purchase. Yeah.
It still is.
Yes.
And how's the reception to it? I mean.
Yeah, it was launched at the same time as Shane Joseph's novel "In the Shadow of the Conquistador," which was very interesting. That having those two novels. This one is set in Ecuador and Peru, and his is just set in Peru.
Is that just a weird synchronicity, or?
Yes, it's like those. That was the purpose of launching them together. I think was just the commonality. Yeah. So, but just to go back to your question, I guess that I think that it's been positive what I've seen, and the people that have reviewed the novel have been very positive about it. I've also mentored with David Adams Richards at the Humber School for Writers, so he was my writing mentor for it. So he read through the entire novel and gave me comments about it, and like his comments really factored into how I wrote the novel. And I had it edited professionally after that as well, and a number of people reading it, and so I really got it out there as far as getting people to read it and provide feedback and letting me know what worked and what didn't work in their opinions. So
are you still consider yourself a writer in terms of a creative pursuit? Are you thinking about writing any more books, or are you working on one?
Yes, I've got a couple that I've completed that I'm farming around right now. And then I've got another set of books that I'm looking at working on as well that I've started. So.
And what are, if you don't mind me asking, the ones you've already written?
Yeah.
Can you just tell us briefly what the themes of them are?
The one is set in World War I, World War II. World War I, my great-grandfather was in that war from the original people that were sent over from Canada over to France. He was among the first. He wrote a series of letters back to Canada to his mother and father, and so I have read through those letters, taken those, adapted them, and also for the World War II perspective, I've interviewed. There's a man in Burlington that was a World War II veteran. He fought in some of the wars there in World War II. He was a commando in the British Army. So I've worked on that one for a number of years and completed that. The other one is more of an artistic novel, so it has to do with art appreciation, and that was inspired by my touring of some of the museums in Spain. So, yeah.
Wow, interesting. So, what's the essential point of the war book, World War I and World War II?
I guess it's just to set up kind of a precedent of what war does to people, right? The effect on the individual, as opposed to, because we all know about what the overarching theme is. We can read the history books, but what does it mean to the individual, right? So that's what I was looking at in that.
That's something that's probably not really very well considered by politicians, that
right.
the decisions to actually get their countries involved in the war, which seems to be an important theme these days.
Yes.
Right, with what's going on in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And the art appreciation is totally different. Seems like a totally different theme again.
Yes. Yeah, very different books. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, when do you expect these ones might be available for people?
Yeah, I'm just farming them around to different publishers right now, so I'm looking to get a contract for those. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think about the state of literature these days? Does it have as much of a future as the nuclear industry?
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting parallel, but that would be.
Involved in both.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Yeah. So I'm trying to contrast that mentally, and can't get my head around it right now. But
well, the whole nuclear thing.
Yes.
You were mentioning that. If you don't mind, we go into that.
Sure.
You're involved both on the Canadian and the American side in the nuclear industry.
Yes, I have been. Yeah.
Upgrading the plants, adopting some of the lessons that were learned at Fukushima.
Right. Yes.
So, what's your general sense, being in the industry and being hands-on?
Well, I think it's definitely evolving. Like, the nuclear industry is definitely evolving to from what it was, say, 30 years ago, where they would just design for a regular event, so that being like a seismic event or something, without considering where you lose off-site power, where you, like with Fukushima, with the tidal wave that came in and took out their diesel generators, and so that's something that is considered beyond design basis that they didn't consider before, right? So, so I think it's moving in a positive direction to avoid some of these things that we're seeing worldwide, right?
And you were saying that on both sides of the border, the nuclear industry is moving to take all this into consideration and upgrade the safety.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I think it's moving in a very positive direction. And if you look at some of the new designs that are coming out from, like, say, General Electric, these are ones that are considering these types of things.
What about the CANDU?
Yes.
The whole CANDU is which is a unique reactor design.
Right. Yeah. So there's the enhanced CANDU 6, which has advanced safety features as well.
Yeah.
So that's factored into the design. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay. Now, just getting back to the book here again.
Sure.
You want to tell people where they can get their hands on it?
Okay. It's available through independent booksellers can order it. There's also like Amazon. It's available at Indigo. And it's available through Blue Denim Press website. So it's bluedenimpress.com. Has a couple of options to order it there as well.
Personal website, I think we've got up on the screen. They can. There are links there, are there?
Okay. It's there are links on there as well under the fiction heading. So
maybe we could just show the cover of the book so that people can know what they're looking for. And before we wrap up, Christopher, I'm just wondering, I know you did the openings in Toronto and Coburg, but
yes.
Are you planning any more readings or openings or book signings or anything like that?
Yep, I'm looking at getting involved with some literary festivals, upcoming literary festivals for next year. So I'm in the process of going through the applications for those.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I know you're kind of living in Windsor these days. Anything planned for that end of the 401?
Yeah, there's Biblioasis is in Windsor. That's a big literary press now. They for their last they had 3 Giller nominees, I think, for the last Giller Prize. So there's an open house tomorrow night for that. So I'm attending that. And
There?
yes, yeah.
And where is that? Just for people who might be tuning in from
It's
Windsor.
just in Windsor. It's right in Walkerville area, so it's very easy to find right in the off of Wyandotte. So yeah.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, Christopher, great to meet you. Great to have this conversation.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
It sounds
Okay.
like a great book, and it's a real. I mean, I've got that experience of actually being there. So
Mm-hmm.
thanks for coming in today and telling us.
Yeah,
about it.
thank you so much. You appreciate it.
Well, we're going to take a little break here on Like the Lunch. We're going to come back in a little bit. We got a few more guests coming in today, starting at 1. So we'll see all that.